already know what we know, but sometimes we just need to listen.
Hi, I'm Martin Jarvis, and once again I invite you to listen. Evolution. You notice how a lot of folks, when you even use the word evolution, they start tripping out. Well, come on, evolution is real. Maybe not, it's debatable evolution, with the monkey and the ape thing. I know it's debatable. That's not even the discussion here. The evolution I want to talk about is just the reality of life. We evolve. As an individual human being, as enlightenment from a regular human being, life, from the time you're a child to the time you die, there's so much evolution even in your thought. And so evolution is where we change, we change, we evolve, we grow, okay? And I want to talk about evolution as it relates to our lives, well, in this nation and in other nations. The problem that we've had all over the world, as I've been studying recently, as I shared with some of you, Che Guevara. Maybe a few weeks ago, I finished a biography of his. He was a revolutionary that aided the Cuban Revolution, Fidel Castro. He tried to aid in other revolutions around the world, in Congo, and failed, and in Bolivia, and where he eventually met his doom and all. What I'm suggesting, even studying him and studying the economics and social structures and types of government of other nations, is evolution, is that we evolve. Humanity evolves. And I was noticing even recently, when we've been having these political discussions in our nation as far as what to do about the money situation, the economy and all that. And we have particular parties that are embracing a particular economic ideology, and then we have another party that's embracing another economic ideology. The reality is things do evolve, and sometimes if we just sit back and allow them, they would evolve as they should. Now there's a group of economists that believe in this invisible hand idea, that let the market and the economy and everything fix itself. So they're really adamant about not aiding and abetting, not infusing money into the economy, not stimulus, helping people out of the situation or helping businesses out of their mess, but just allowing things to happen as they will, and the economy will straighten itself out. That's what they believe. And that's very good. I've been studying some economics recently as well, and there is a school of thought that does believe that. But even as I'm looking at that sort of from another perspective, so this whole invisible hand, this God thing, is supposed to miraculously allow the economy to straighten up no matter what the situation that is affecting it. And sort of like nature, the survival of the fittest. The things that are not supposed to be there will die off, and what's left will be strong, and it will grow. And so as I'm even looking, and so the nature, even in the things of nature like floods and hurricanes and disasters and all of this, there's really a non-effect on this invisible hand of the economy, because anything happens is part of nature, is part of what was supposed to happen, which still allows the economy to do what it's supposed to do. So given that, I want to suggest that even a stimulus, even infusing money into the economy is nature. Human beings are just part of nature, so it's just something being infused into the economy that really is not going to prevent the economy from straightening up, because it's just another thing affecting the economy, but that invisible hand will, even in spite of stimulus, even in spite of infusing money, will work itself out. And to me, then, the stimulus or the infusing of money is simply a way to minimize the damage in the lives of human beings while we're in this process of the market straightening itself out. Okay, it's very interesting. It's very interesting evolution, because things do work themselves out. we do get caught up in the mix sometimes because of our ideologies or our points of view, our opinions, the things that make sense to us. But I mean, we are all different type human beings. We do think differently. But some things, if we could just sit back and allow them to work themselves out. And one of the things, I guess Che Guevara, that book I was reading, he seemed like a very interesting man. I studied him because as you would research, you would hear people that really loved the man and people that really hated the man. So I wanted to find out for myself. And he really wasn't all that. I mean, he was a pretty talented guy, I suppose, and he was a revolutionary because he saw what he thought were injustices, and he found the only way to satisfy the injustice was at the point of a gun and sacrificing one's life for a greater good to make all people equal. But then if you go and look at the Cuban economy right now, it doesn't look all that great. Now, I have to admit it has a lot to do with embargoes and a lot of the heavy hand of other nations like the United States that has sort of been against Cuba. But still, the reality is, was revolution the proper way to go? And so I think, well, you know, it's revolution, man being nature, that was just another thing. Yeah, why not? And then you look at the condition of that nation right now, it's kind of jacked up as a result of the revolution. But prior to the revolution, the people were being like prostituted by other nations, including our own. So how, you know, it's hard to know. But eventually things do straighten themselves out. Things do work themselves out. Some things just happen, take a little bit longer time than others. And I'm sort of applying that to our lives as well as human beings to just recognize that we are victims to our choices, or beneficiaries to our good positive choices as well. But in the long scheme of things, the reality is just a journey of life. There are decisions that are made, and our decisions bring us to a point of insight and understanding, especially our mistakes, what we perceive as being mistakes. But if it was a mistake at a particular point in your life, and you learn from it, and based on that insight, you begin to make positive choices and better decisions, then was it really a mistake, or was it just a very important part of the learning process and part of the journey that your life took? I mean, you can take a high school student or a middle school or elementary school student who hates school, and they can say, well, this is a very terrible part of my life. It's a mistake. I hate it. I'd rather not be here. But after the fact, you know, later in life, they'll recognize it was a very integral part of the learning process to be successful in life. I know I just got my degree from college recently, and this college algebra class was like the worst nightmare. I even dropped the class one quarter, but then came back 2 quarters later and took it and passed it. But at that time, it was like torture. But it was a necessary benchmark in the process, in the journey of my matriculation. It was necessary. So now in retrospect, I appreciate that class. I never want to see that stuff again. But I appreciate that it was a positive part of the process, although at the time I was embroiled in it, it was terribly negative. I think what that gives us then is an ability, or it should give us an ability to begin to respond properly. We're in the midst of trying situations and not to react too drastically. Because in retrospect, how many things can you look back? We look back at our lives oftentimes and we see situations that were so terrible, so traumatic, so devastating and unsurvivable. But we survived. We lived. Even as we look past it now, sometimes we can chuckle and sometimes we can be, well, man, I'm sure glad that didn't happen. In retrospect, but at that moment, it was terrible. And I want to give you that encouragement in life right now to recognize that things do work themselves out. That you can have a peace in life as you're walking through this process. I think of it, it's like that football player, you know, that's throwing the ball, like Walter Payton, remember him, or Deion Sanders, or some of those guys, and they're just running and book it, and maybe somebody grabs them. They have to spin around and shoot out that way. Find somebody jumped at their legs, they have to jump over them. I've seen football players do somersault flips over folks and keep on running. Sometimes they got to go backwards and cut back around and go another direction. Now, if you would take a snapshot of that run when they were going back, you think, man, this guy's failing. He was here and now he's back here. But in order to get up here, he had to go back to come around to get to where he's going. So I'm suggesting then that this is the condition of our lives. We need not fret when we have seeming setbacks. We need fret when we have seemingly negative situations that come into our lives, because really, it's just the path. It's the journey. It's the matriculation. And in the long run, we're going to be all right. For real. And so when we look at evolution, when we look at change, we shouldn't look at it so harshly like the political situation in this nation. We had an African American that became president about 4 years ago, and the country lost their mind, half the country. Now you can understand it because it was a tremendous challenge to the status quo. It was a tremendous status to the world view, the paradigm that many people have lived in for generations and generations in this nation all their life. That was impossible. And like world systems and world mindsets, world views came crashing down. And many people didn't survive. There are people now that are so angry and so full of hatred and vitriol, they don't know what to do. And they didn't recognize the evolution of the thing. Now we've been told for the past 20 or 30 years that the ethnicity of this nation and the color skin of the majority is changing, is going to change. We've known this for decades. But it has happened. And part of that which is happening is seeing an African American president living in the White House for 2 terms even. Okay? And so what I'm suggesting today is it's just the evolution of a thing. It's sort of like a current, a flow of a river. And we can fight against the river, and it'll work for a while, you know, if the river is shallow. But the deeper it gets, the harder it is, and eventually, if you don't roll with it, you're just not going to make it. Evolution of a thing. Evolution. I see people that are really ragging on this President Obama, terribly. And this is the second term. Now, when I'm filming this program, it's December 23rd right now, okay, 2012. So you're watching this probably into January or so, 2013. So President Obama has entered his second term when you're watching this program. But they're still ragging on him. Terrible. And I was thinking a lot of them are not veterans, they're not military, so they might have a different perspective. But you know, I was in the military in the 70s, the mid 70s and all, mid to late 70s. And I was a GI, served under a Republican President Ford and a Democrat President Carter, Jimmy Carter. And we were given to understand then, I was a young military person, I was 17 when I joined the military, but we were given to understand that like when we were overseas, for example, we weren't just representing Americans. We were like representatives to a particular type of government, a particular way of electing a president of a nation. And we were to be examples of other nations on that this was the best way, this was the system of government that was the best. And so when you find a group of people in this nation that have participated in the election process in this system of government and still can't come to terms with their guy having lost and ragging on them and being divisive and divided, that basically representing to the nation, all the other nations of the world, that you guys are right, that you don't need to come together when a democratically elected president comes into power, because it doesn't matter what the will of the majority of people is. If your guy didn't win, you fight him tooth and nail as long as you can. That's the message our nation has sent to other nations, because we don't understand the process. We don't first understand our own political process. We don't understand the system of government that we have. We, the people, we don't understand how we elect an individual to be president. We have our champions, but then when there is one elected, we come together and recognize that the will of the people is spoken. This is what our soldiers have died for. See, our soldiers historically haven't been laying down their lives and dying to protect America. Those are the words that we come up with now to give satisfaction and comfort to the mothers and fathers and husbands and wives and children and relatives and friends of the people who have lost their lives in distant lands as service members. And I come from a long line of service. My father was World War II, Korea, Vietnam. My brother's Vietnam. Another brother and I, peacetime. My sister, who's in now, E9, Desert Storm, Desert Shield. I come from myself as well in peacetime. I come from a family of military people. And so I'm not saying this in any kind of negativity, because growing up, all my friends were military, and all we knew to do was join the military. That was the world I came up in. And the world I'm still in today. I work with now basically 90% veterans where I work. So I love this country and I love the service members. But we need to recognize historically that our service members have been in other lands laying down their lives and limbs, not necessarily protecting our country, but promoting our type government, trying to keep communism, from spreading, throughout the world and all. That's been our function. You want to read a good book? Read On China by Henry Kissinger. Very good book. Gives you a real deep insight of what the role of our government, the role of our military truly has been historically. And so we've been promoting, we've been that living witness to other nations on this is how your nation could be. See, it's other nations that when their guy doesn't win, they protest. When their guy doesn't win, they never give in. They hate, all that stuff. They don't understand what it's like for a nation to come together and to have 2 or 3 champions and elect the will of the people, elect one of them, and the nation comes together under the will of the people, under that leader. But we haven't been an example of that ourselves. We have made a mockery of that process, and basically we have told other nations that what you're doing is the same thing that we do. You get a democratically elected leader, you don't accept him. We get a democratically elected leader, we don't accept him either. That's been our position. And you want to talk about a shame to the lives that have been sacrificed trying to promote our way of life and to share with other nations that our system of government, our way is the best. We have not proven that. We have proven a mockery of our top government to the rest of the world by protesting, by coming against a democratically elected president that we, the people of this nation, desire to be in office. So those that call ourselves true patriots and are not coming in line behind the democratically elected president are not patriots at all. I mean, to call yourself a patriot is not a patriot. There's a biblical quote about the Jew is not the Jew outwardly, the Jew is the Jew inwardly. To say that it's not what you say you are, what you look like what you are, but what you actually are. Oftentimes there is a difference. We can call ourselves patriots to tickle our fancies. We can call ourselves patriots to make ourselves feel better or think we're making ourselves look better. But if you don't appreciate or embrace the will of the people of this nation, you're no patriot. Because that's what the patriot is about, this system of government. The way we elect our president and how united we stand. That's what a patriot is. Patriot, just because you're wearing red, white, and blue and carrying a gun, that don't make you a patriot. To come against the democratically elected president of this nation is more treasonous than patriotic, whether the president is Republican or Democrat. It's simply the way that it is. But to use another biblical term, it's not too late to repent. This New Year's. This isn't the new year. This is the first month of the new year. First, second month of the new year when you're watching this program. It's time to put aside our past beefs. Recognize the evolution of this society. Recognize the evolution of this nation. And like a flowing river. And instead of fighting against it because you cannot win, it's flowing with it. And recognize there's a positive to this thing. And so remember those immortal words of Barack Obama before he was president, when he was the Democratic Convention spokesman. He said that there is no white America, there is no black America, brown or red or yellow America. It's true. And the moment everyone recognizes this, the moment we recognize and realize it, we'll stop trying to get our country back. We'll stop going through all that mess. A lot of the stress will leave. The reality is, no, this is our nation. And our nation is in the midst of this world. And our nation is supposed to be leading and guiding and showing the way to how a democratic nation, melting pot full of various ethnicities, races, cultures, religions, that we can all be one nation. United we stand. For real. We can do it. But we have to embrace evolution. Not the evolution, the Darwinian evolution. I'm not talking about that right now. But just the reality of evolution of our lives and of the reality in which we live. And as the world gets larger and the world gets more enlightened, as we get more enlightened to the largeness of the world, yet the oneness of the world, we'll find a freedom and a peace in our hearts. It won't be so difficult. Sometimes I think it's the old people that have to die out. The old people are hanging on to the hate. The old people are hanging on to the racism, the xenophobiaism, all this negativity out where I hate. Like the gay issue going on, man. I mean, I have a hard time as a heterosexual male wrapping my arms around that, I was in the military, though, years ago. I mean, I knew a lot of gay people, and we were friends. We were cool, And so that's a very difficult subject for me as well, because that's not where my mind is. But then I think Americans, and what is fair, I mean, it's obvious. This is just the evolution, the reality of our society, the reality of the world and the way things are going. And for whatever you want to call it, for an individual, can you withhold human rights from an individual simply because they don't think like you do? I don't think so. I know that's tough for many folks. But that is just simply the reality, the evolution. Either we go with the flow or we are destroyed. But you can't fight the progress. You can't fight the reality of what is happening. It's sort of like that global warming thing. Now, I don't know if it's real or not, but man, things sure do seem to be looking kind of funny. And how long are we going to... It's sort of like the cigarette. You remember the cigarettes that smoking cigarettes can be hazardous to your health? A lot of folks didn't believe that, but eventually they came to the point to where they believed it. It's evolution. And the evolution that we're talking about really is the reality of reality, of revelation, of understanding, of knowledge, that aha moment, or those aha moments that we evolve through in certain benchmarks of our existence. Evolution. We shouldn't be fretting so much. There's peace and wellness in evolution. But anyway, that's going to be a tough one. A tough one to roll with. But I believe we can do it. Because failure is death. If we don't make it, we won't make it. Consider evolution as it relates to, say, the dinosaurs. The ones that couldn't adapt to climate changes. What happened? They died. With that, I do want to thank you once again for joining me and listening. And I want to invite you to listen again.